I'm going through my old history notes made by SparkNotes. I'm disappointed. And Joseph Crisafulli, is going to tell you a little bit about why this card is wrong. This card says, in 1947, Jackie Robinson was the first African-American baseball player to play for the Major League. From 1884 to 1947, blacks and whites were completely segregated in baseball. After Robinson played for the Brooklyn Dodgers, other African-Americans followed. Why is this false, Joseph?
Well, first of all, she asked me to do this. I didn't volunteer. So Jackie Robinson was the first player to break the color barrier. The first African-American to play Major League Baseball was William White, 1879, the Providence Rays. But the first player to play full-time was Moses Fleetwood Walker, and also his brother, and there were others. So the fact that Jackie Robinson is the first to break the color barrier, okay, with that, but he's not the first by any means to have played in the major leagues. What that means is there was a time when there was not a color barrier. And people learning history, people would do well to truly understand the times and the circumstances and the environments that you're learning about, and not just some quick little fact, because we erroneously feel that that fact represents the totality of the truth. So Moses Fleetwood Walker maybe was the most famous of the black players of the time, maybe because he might have been one of the best. Frank Grant was really good too. Some minor leagues today, like the International League, for instance, is a AAA league, were major leagues at the time. So the National League in 1876 replaced what was the first openly professional league. And the 1876, whether it's 1871 or 1876 with the National League, there's a lot of contention, even among baseball historians, which should count as the first major league. Between the National League's birth in 1876 and the American League's birth in 1900, there were at least 2-3 other leagues that, with the National League, counted as the major leagues. That's why it's called the major leagues, not the like the NBA is the National Basketball Association, is that they were separate entities that counted as major leagues. And Moses Fleetwood Walker played in a couple, I think. He played for the Syracuse Stars, actually. I'd just like to mention that. But it was basically Cap Anson. So, for instance, you had some of Moses Fleetwood Walker's own teammates that obviously hated the fact that they had to play with a black guy. Some of them were from the South, some of them weren't. And you had teammates of his that thought this was a damn shame, that he's obviously good enough and he should be able to play. You had umpires that were determined to always rule against the black player. You had some who were fighting the racist umpire because they wanted to judge a clean game. So you had a patchwork of tolerance and intolerance, which really is the history of America. A patchwork of tolerance and intolerance. Before 1800, you had organized white Americans lobbying Congress to end slavery. But Congress doesn't rule by fiat. There isn't a king who says, you know what, you are right, and that's the law. You have representatives in Congress. So representatives in Congress represent the people from where they are from. And it's those people's responsibility, whether you're from your district in the Bronx, your district in Queens, your district in Georgia, to vote people that represent your interests. So in Congress, right, simple majority rules. If one more vote, who's probably from the South, says no, in fact, they would even quote from the Bible to somehow justify slavery, you can come up with any word acrobatics, verbal acrobatics to justify your position. And if there's one vote in the majority in this free process, this democratic process that decides slavery stays, then slavery stays. And that's why things end up in the Civil War, because you had a divided Congress, you had a divided people. So in other words, you have a fair, free process. The question is, what's the engagement of people in that process? Obviously, black folks were excluded from that process. That is wrong. The process isn't what's wrong. And now that everyone is free to vote, unless you've been unfairly incarcerated, you have the right to go and vote and represent the people in Congress. So that's why you had a divided America, just like baseball, right? Baseball is a fair game, okay? But if you have half the team that says, let the fucking guy play, you know? And even among them, some of them, well, I wouldn't want my daughter dating that guy, but he should be able to play. You have other people, this is a free world, and they should have all the rights, and that's that. And then you have some people who say, we're just racist and just despicable people. And one of those people was Cap Anson, a great first baseman for what at the time were the Chicago White Stockings, right? So you already have this struggle. You have fans in the stadium that are cheering their own black player. You have fans in the stadium who are throwing things at their own black player. Literally that divided. So when someone of the status of Cap Anson says, I refuse to play that team, just like America, the league wants to survive, right? To survive, at least to fight another day. Maybe some just want to maintain their profit. Again, a mixed bag. We're a mixed bag of humanity. And that's when in 1884-85 they had the off-the-books agreement, I won't call it a gentleman's agreement, to no longer have players of color, to at least put a kibosh on that issue. And Jackie Robinson was the first one, carefully crafted the whole architecture of his ascension to the major leagues, crafted by Branch Rickey, who was the white GM of the Dodgers. I don't mean handed as a gift from the gods, Jackie being able to play in the major leagues. He was awesome. He wasn't a token. But to make this whole thing work, okay, just like Martin Luther King knows, to make this whole thing work, I need a man on the inside, who was the white President Johnson, to push this through, to have a grassroots effort and someone in the institution who is going to side with us and work day and night. If you see photos of them crafting civil rights legislation, they both look absolutely miserable because this is tough work to make it passable and get it through. So Branch Rickey is figuring out how to make this work, and his goal was to have Jackie be one of three coming up together at once. And the way things moved, he couldn't wait on the other two, and he ended up pushing Jackie through.
And that is why Jackie Robinson is not the first.
I suck at stories.
No, that was great.